It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
Say hello to oyster bunnies.
Okay, do we dare talk about the press conference last night?
Oh, we have to. By the way, speaking of say hello to the Oyster Bunny, hello to everybody who's not listening on our live stream this morning.
John once again, I took the Billie Jean course, not J-E-N, but G-E-N-E, and he had 13 reasons, 13 things to be successful. And it's funny because he started off with number 0, which actually there were 14 things. I think number 2 or number 3 was everything's your fault. So every problem with the radio station right now, every single problem is my fault. I'm not going to say it was the chief engineer's fault because that's me.
That's you, but even though you're undocumented. Right. And by the way, if you're Brad, only one more thing here. Okay, can you brace yourself?
I don't know if I can. This has been like I feel like I'm in a roast.
It's a roast. It's a roast.
I'm in a roast
right. Today. And here's the thing, though: if you're tired of hearing us talk about politics and you just want to relax, go to westplex1071.com, and you can hear pop music. That website's up and running, right, Brad? Because when I send people, I don't do it anymore because it annoys you, I think. But when I used to send people a link to augustelection.com and then I went there myself, I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, if you're tired of hearing us talk about politics, turn your brain off, go to westplex1071.com.
John, I have, once again, it's ultimately my fault.
But you have, let me interrupt you, Brad. You don't have enough projects. I think you need to start Westplex Chamber 2.0. I think you need to start snarfitdown.com instead of snarfitup.com. And I also think you need to find another metro region to advance with a chamber and a website, .news, .social, because you don't have enough projects, Brad. Go ahead.
Here's my problem, John. I have been with the same internet service provider, not ISP, a hosting company since, 2004, 2005. And they have been absolutely positively excellent. Okay, then came along the COVID thing. They used to have people staffing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. An American company, actually headquartered in Georgia, in downtown Atlanta, okay? And I did my homework on it. Actually, my son turned me on to these guys. I mean, they have an incredible facility with backup power and generators and cooling fans and, security and the whole bit, okay? Then COVID comes along. And they drastically changed their operations, and they have never been the same. So on several of the websites, I am migrating them from my old hosting company to a new one, and the westplex1071.com website is stuck in between the two companies right now, and it's very frustrating to me because it's one of these things where it's like, hey, can you do this for me? Not my problem. It's your other guy's problem. And I talk to them. Yeah. Hey, can you fix this for me? Oh, not our problem. It's the other guy's problem. So, John's.
I'm not going to ride you for the rest of the week, Brad. The whole rest of the week, I'm not going to give you a hard time about this stuff.
We think today's Friday.
And if you guys are listening to this right now, well, you're not listening on the live stream, but if you're listening to this over the air, Brad will have today's show chopped up by at least 11 p.m. tonight.
Okay.
And then that way we can miss out on today's traffic and I can post it tomorrow.
Okay, once upon a time, I was an inconsiderate jerk. Some people may still say that as far as time is concerned. Okay, I was dating a girl by the name of Chris Guzman who...
Does she want her name out there, Brad?
Well, you have to figure out what her new name is, okay? So, and I didn't realize this about myself, and I was always late for stuff. So I had a date with Chris, and one day I showed up her house, and I knock on the door, and her mom comes out. I go, is Chris here? Well, no, she's gone. I go, we were supposed to go out. And she says, I told her to leave. I go, why did you tell her to leave? And she says, you are the most inconsiderate person. You tell my daughter that you're going to be here at 10 o'clock, and at 10:20 you show up. And the other day you told my daughter you're going to be here at 11:30, and 12:10 you get here. She says, that is so inconsiderate about how you treat other people's times. If you tell someone you're going to be at their house at 11:30, you be there at 11:25. Okay. So I slink off to my car, and I go, oh, holy crap. That changed my life. That literally standing on my girlfriend's front step, being dressed on by her mom, changed my life. I'm the guy that if I'm not there 5 minutes early, I'm on the phone saying, hey, I'll be there a couple minutes before 10 o'clock. And people go,
100%.
Well, you're not. As a matter of fact, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. Okay?
Yep.
Having said that, last night with the press conference, supposed to start at 5:30 our time. I think it finally got underway at 6:30. Okay? What the hell is wrong with the president and his people that if they say they're going to do something at 5:30, it happens an hour later? I mean, what does that tell you about how they manage their time? I mean, I ask you that, John. I mean, you tell me your impression on that.
What I think it is, and a rare moment of empathy here for people that work in the White House, I imagine, Brad, that there's actually a good number of Brad Hildebrand types and John Combest types that say, hey, look, if we say we're going to start at X o'clock, we got to get out there. And there's somebody or plural people close to the president that just say, he's not ready right now. Stop rushing him. You guys are part of the problem. We've told you. You pushing him too hard. And I bet there's people there, Brad, that are like you and me that are like, come on, guys, get him out there. That's what I think.
Well, you're probably right, and that's probably the case. But to me, it just shows, I mean, once again, they talk about first impressions. Obviously, with the president, we've had way more than first number of impressions. But they talk about the fact that, I told you the goofy story that I got a contract once. I was bidding against another guy, and the guy that it was a radio station deal. Lee Clear, a guy used to run the Clear Channel stations here in town, which is funny because everybody thought he owned the place. Lee Clear, that was his name, Clear. I got the deal because of the fact that the guy I was bidding against showed up at his office in short sleeve shirts.
And that's right. Which, by the way, there's no such thing as a short sleeve dress shirt. We've established that before.
And Lee said to me, I think his deal's a little bit better than yours, but you show up in long sleeve dress shirts all the time. He shows up in short sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
And he said that was disrespectful to him to show up dressed like that. Now, once again, today, it's to the point where, like, have you been on an airplane lately? It's to the point where, like, can anybody dress more, is a word my mom used to love all the time, slovenly, okay? You like words.
Yeah.
In other words, you dress like a slob. You know what I mean?
I do get it. Yeah. So you're saying that he was late, and let's talk about the substance of the press conference. I was excited to see that Donald Trump is now vice president. Let's start there. And that my friend Vladimir Putin is now officially the president of Ukraine. It's a long time coming. Like he's been angling for that for a while.
That didn't happen at the press conference. That happened earlier at the.
Well, that happened earlier
at the NATO thing, right? Okay. Have you seen the pictures of the people who photoshopped? They photoshopped.
Yeah, it's so good.
Kamala Harris's face onto Donald Trump.
It's so good. Yes.
Now,
the best part, let me interrupt, Brad. The best part is, did you see the shot of Biden cabinet officials, the camera on them when Joe Biden said Vice President Trump?
No, I did not.
Yeah, there's a legit camera that shows the three of their faces, and the guys look a little bit bereft, so to speak, and the woman just puts her hand up to her face, like her hand up to her mouth, like, oh.
Oh, she does?
Like, how does it happen?
She does?
Yeah.
And she's what is she, one of the high muckety mucks?
Yeah, she's one of the cabinet. They have, the cabinet secretaries are sitting there listening to the president. And yeah, you can find it. It's a popular clip on social.
Well, I talked about this yesterday with the Chuck Todd thing. And matter of fact, there was tons of people talking about that. And there's a perfect example. You don't know what we're talking about. Chuck Todd came out the other day and go, I've got a friend of mine who's one of the high-level cabinet members. And he told me 2 years ago that Biden, was off his mark, and once again, this is Chuck Todd, the guy, high muckety muck. He's like, I think he's the news director or the head of news operations for NBC, and he's in DC. He does the Meet the Press show. 2 years ago, he's laughing about this on a podcast. Okay, once again, if that were Donald Trump 2 years ago, the next minute, Chuck Todd would have been on, we've got breaking news, the president doesn't show up for his cabinet meetings, and I talked to a high-level cabinet official who says that Donald Trump is a mess in his cabinet meetings. And I'm going like, okay. And now, once again, it's like me watching CNN. In my life, I will never forget watching the presidential debates. And before the debate, they had that panel of 8 or 9 people, and they're, oh, it's going to be interesting. And then afterward, it's like, I don't want to. Why do we let this bum be our president? I'm going like, what just happened? This is CNN. And even the classic one is, if you heard this crazy thing, it happened like a month and a half ago, where Joe, what's his name, Morning Joe, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, Joe Scarborough.
Joe Scarborough. He used to be a Republican. He goes on one morning and he goes, hey, listen and F you if you don't listen to what I'm saying. This version of Joe Biden is the best version ever. He's the smartest guy, the sharpest guy. He knows, he can tell you, he can read the Constitution to you backwards and in 3 languages. Going like, and then after the debate, it's like, oh boy, that's really sad. Joe Biden is not the guy we need. It's like, okay, can you be any more fake? And once again, this is the classic example of the emperor has no clothes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who's going to point it out? Who
right.
has the courage to point it out?
But John, once again, as a young man, I stepped into a classroom at SIU Edwardsville, and this crazy...
And his name was Dr.?
Camille Winter. And this crazy Czechoslovakian journalism professor immediately assaults our ears and faces and, does that European thing where he walks around the class and he looks into your face and his nose is almost touching your nose. He's so close. No, he's violating the personal space because the Europeans don't have any personal space issues like Americans do. And he's ingraining in our brains that we are future journalists. We're the people who are always trying to find the truth. And more importantly, we don't show our biases. We turn that part of our brain off when we write a story about John Combest or whoever, and we don't talk about the fact, well, John was nice to me. He said something nice to me the other day, so I'm not going to talk about the fact that he passed me on the highway doing 120 miles an hour the other day.
Yep.
I'm not going to, once again, what the hell's happened to media? And the answer is, there is no more journalists. It's just like the person that I talked to off the record several months ago who said they don't teach journalism anymore. They teach activism. And I'm thinking to myself, he's exactly right. I mean, that's sad. It's sad it is that way.
It is. And I don't know. I'd like to hear what St. Louis Public Radio has to say. They're back from hiatus, Brad, so maybe they'll have an official response. Or maybe I have it on good authority that Jason Rosenbaum is super pissed at you because he didn't hug you and cuddle you yesterday. I'm just telling you what I heard, Brad. By the way, hey, a unique fact as a follow-up from yesterday. We talked about the Alexis Zotos interview with Tashara Jones. Alexis announced on Twitter yesterday that she is going on vacation starting today, and she will not be checking Twitter, Brad, a.k.a. X. So she just wants you to know. She wants everybody to know. She's going on vacation. She got a lot of feedback from the interview she did with Tashara Jones. She wants folks to know she is going on vacation, and she is not checking X.
Was the feedback positive or negative, or did she say?
Ooh, I read through a lot of the comments of folks that responded to her. A lot of folks that listen to Mark Reardon seem to respond to her and have a lot to say.
Well, once again, and let me read the quote because I had it here the other day. Where was it? And here it is right here. The quote is here it is right here. She says, "The city has done everything we can do, but our hands are tied." Yeah. Now, once again, if you have a problem let's say you live in Chesterfield, and you have a problem, and you go and talk to the mayor, and the mayor says, and you have a problem with, let's say the guy next to you is, instead of using his trash can, he uses his front yard. And he just opens up the door, and out comes the trash into the front yard. And you have repeatedly talked to the city, the mayor, and the alder people, and the public works, and the building inspector, and they say to you, "I'm sorry, the city has done everything we can do, but our hands are tied." How does that make you feel?
I would be outraged because I pay a huge tax rate in Chesterfield, and I want my government to be responsive to me.
Right. And once again, to me, that is the sign of not a leader, but a follower. A follower would say, well, they did everything they could. They tried real hard. A leader would say, you know what? We're going to get this taken care of. No matter how long it takes and no matter how much time I have to spend, we're going to get this problem worked out. Right? I mean, isn't that...
Yeah, and you know what you should do, Brad? Maybe you should send her some of your Billie Jean, parentheses, is not my lover, end parentheses, tapes, and she can listen to the idea that everything is her fault and everything is her responsibility.
But see, once again, it's when you get to, my age, because of the fact that I practice nightly. Matter of fact, I don't know if John knows this, but I practice nightly every night, even though when there's nobody, like at 2 o'clock in the morning, when there's nobody stirring in my neighborhood, I open up my door and I go, get off my lawn, just to stay in practice,
Well, Lord knows you're not out there cutting your grass, because I have it on good authority that you let your grass get to be between 4 and 5 inches in the summer, Brad.
John, is this beat up on Brad Day?
Brad. And this is a good time to point out to everyone how fortunate I am to get to do the show with you for 1 hour every morning, Brad. And you are a delight, and it is an absolute highlight of my day. And I hope when you go to things, like you went to the debate yesterday, and you feel the radiance and the love from people, you think about the fact that you brighten people's day every weekday during the week, Brad.
Well, it is sort of interesting to have people, mimic back things that you say, and, they go, I can't believe John said this, or I can't believe you said that kind of stuff, because what we try to, no, seriously, if there's anything that you and I try to do, we try to be 180 degrees away from KWMU and NPR. We try to be real with a capital REAL. We're not, well, thank you, John. Let's go to Jim on the sports desk. Jim, what's happening with the Cardinals? Well, the Cardinals are having a rough stretch. No, we essentially try to be, ultimately, a long time ago, one of my radio gurus, guy who's one of my boss, said, the best compliment you can get when you're on the radio is someone says they feel like you're in the car with them and they're having a conversation with you. Or if it's a talk station, they feel like you're with a bunch of your buddies and you're sitting at a bar with 3 or 4 of your buddies and you're listening to them go back and forth. And once again, look at the popular talk shows. Look at the popular podcasts. That's why Joe Rogan is so popular, because of the fact that he's not a fake. He's for real. And the people he has on his shows, if they're fake, they're not on his show. Get what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying. And that's why when you and I roast each other on this show, I think that's why people understand that that's the way friends talk to each other.
My old buddy, who I miss, who was one of my clients, started as one of my clients and turned into a good friend of mine, Randy Bluestone, owns the Country Club Car Washes in St. Charles County. His wife and Mark Cummer, I believe, still own them. I think they sold out. Randy was the king of you think you trash me. He would trash me however level it was. If you were at a 2, he was at a 20, okay? And one day he said to me words that I will never forget. He says, the level of friendship depends, how do you put it? The more S you can give someone, the better friendship you have with them. And I thought to myself,
absolutely,
ain't that the truth? It's like trash talking. It's like sometimes when my 4 kids get together and they trash talk each other, I'm thinking to myself, they really love each other. You know what I'm saying?
They absolutely do.
They really love each other because they're trash talking it. And it's not nasty trash talk. It's sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of trash talk. Okay, it's 8:01. John, here's what I have to do. I have to get out of here, and I have to go to St. Charles County Courthouse, be insulted by a guy in the elevator. I have to take my son to 14 hospitals. I'm going to drive him up to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and I'll be back by midnight to chop up the show, okay?
As long as you're back at 6:55, because I'm going to call you at 6:55 on Monday morning. That's what I need, Brad. As long as you're there at 6:55 on Monday morning.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?